Good morning. Today is March the 9th, Monday of 2026.
Woo!
It is. It's actually starting to warm up now. I think this week we're supposed to hit 70, I think. 80? Who said 80? 80 is nice. It's going to hit around 70 or 80, I think, give or take. But you never know with these meteorologists, to be honest with you. It is going to be a great week. And so we hope that you enjoy this upcoming week. But first and foremost, it is Monday morning, and that means it is time for the Dear Church podcast. This morning, we are talking about the biggest news story that's out there right now.
We are.
This is probably the biggest news story right now.
Oh my goodness.
And so we'll be talking about
the new gray Jordans that came out.
the Jordan 5s, actually. Yeah. They're expensive, though. He told me. I want them. I want them very badly.
How'd he get them?
He just, deacon meeting. Yeah, he got them.
Oh, he waited on internet line?
But he got them. They're nice. The Jordan 5s with the little tie at the front. It's pretty cool. But this morning we are talking about what is fastly becoming.
Mm-hmm.
This morning we are talking about the attacks on Iran that we saw happen 2 Saturdays ago, and so that is what we'll be discussing, and what is now becoming a. Wait, how does something become a war? We have to declare it, I think. Yeah. So we'll be talking about the conflict in Iran this morning. You are listening to the Dear Church podcast. Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. We have with us Pastor Eugene and Chuntuk and Brian. And this morning, we're going to be talking about quite the big topic that's happening in our news cycle right now. And I think you did have. Are we drinking this right now?
Oh yeah, I gave Sam a gift. What is it? What is it that you're holding? You need to describe it.
A
for
Monster
those that
Energy Ultra Wild Passion. It's a purple zero sugar Monster. I thought Monster was 666. I thought it was demonic. Is it not?
This vav 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 or wow wow wow.
Doesn't that mean and? I guess in the
Wait,
Hebrew.
Jansuke, have you tried this Ultra Wild Passion yet? I saw it in CVS. I thought Sam.
Are we going to open it like when we were almost
Celsius,
sponsored by Celsius?
Yeah, sponsored. Yeah, let's try.
Don't say that name.
Yeah, buddy. You want a sip?
For those of you that are only listening to the podcast, it tastes like
It tastes like Ultra Wild Passion.
if I could taste passion of the wild sort,
In Ultra way.
this is what passion would taste like. So this morning, Pastor Eugene, we're talking about a pretty big story, a very big happening event in our world that we are all aware of right now, and that's the conflict that's happening in Iran. On Saturday, February the 28th, the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, along with many of Iran's military and political leaders, were killed by a joint coalition of the U.S. and Israeli military. And I think when we think about this event, I think some questions can come up. Why are we going to war? Why do we strike first? Question of just war theory, in which war is permissible for Christians on grounds of defense. Striking first doesn't necessarily seem like it's defense. That's offense. That's not defense. But before we go into the Christian worldview, maybe just a quick modern history would be helpful. In 1979, we're going all the way back to 1979, due to intensifying unrest in the nation of Iran, the Shah, who was leader at the time, fled, which gave the perfect opportunity for Ayatollah Khomeini to return from France. This Ayatollah Khomeini, who was different from the leader that was killed 2 weeks ago, was the first supreme leader, and he was also a Ayatollah that was sent to exile in France for his opposition to the Shah of Iran at the time. That same year, in 1979, Ayatollah, which is a religious clerical term, a class of religious, it's like a Muslim official of the Shiite kind. Is it Shiite?
Yeah, the Shia or Shiite.
Shia or Shiite.
That's the one side of Muslims.
Right, and the other side would be the Sunnis.
The Sunnis.
Right.
The vast majority, of course, are the Sunnis.
And I think it's only in the teens, like 13%, like 12% are Shiite.
Yeah, they're like 10 to 15%
Yep.
of all the Muslims are Shia Muslims or
Yeah.
Shiites. And then the rest, 85 to 90, are Sunni Muslims. But
Right.
of the 1.6 billion Muslims that are out there, that's why you had like that kind of tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Okay, that makes
Saudi
sense.
Arabia, they're all Sunnis.
Yep.
The vast majority, like upwards of 95%. And here, they're all Shia
Yeah.
Muslims, right? And so, do you know the difference between the two?
Just I know they sound different.
It's about Muhammad's successor.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so the Sunnis believe that the successor should be someone that has consensus, like the vast majority can choose the, successor.
Yes.
The Shias believe that it's a divine lineage. So
Ah, okay.
yeah, it was Muhammad's like
Kind of like the Roman Catholics.
brother-in-law or something like that, or
Yeah.
cousin-in-law, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think cousin, but then he's the divine successor
Right.
of Muhammad, right? And so they are at odds. Although, the basic tenets of Islam, they both keep. Obviously, if you believe that, you'll start to separate on a lot of ground.
Yeah. So in that year, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini, who was a Shia Muslim, came back to Iran and guided Iran to declare itself as a theocratic republic guided by Islamic principles, and it was renamed the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is interesting because the government system of Iran actually blends popular election and religious rule together. And so there are two offices here. I think some of us that may do some extra reading can get confused because there's a supreme leader. There's also a president. In Iran, you'll see two offices because in a regular republic that we see for example, in the U.S., the citizens elect leaders, right? Iran kept a part of that model, so the people vote for a president. They elect members of parliament. But there's a structure that is above the elected structure, which is the religious oversight under the belief that God is sovereign over all. And so it's this idea that a senior Islamic clergy member should guide the state, which is the Ayatollah in this case. And that's how the supreme leader office came to be. In the nation of Iran, the supreme leader is the highest authority and the president is the second highest authority. The president runs the day-to-day government, overseeing the cabinet, managing economy, representing the country in foreign affairs, stuff like that. Whereas the supreme leader is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He appoints the head of the judiciary, state media, key military bodies. He has a final word on matters of defense, foreign policy, and national direction. And so all these roles fall upon the supreme leader, and he's actually above the presidency and can overrule the president. And all of this was really so that the Islamic principles would run the state. They wanted the state to be run along the laws of Islam. They want to check both royal power and secular politics. And so with this, we saw Sharia law, Western music, alcohol was banned. Those who worked for the Shah were executed. Domestic opposition within the country, they were suppressed. And hostility towards the West, especially the U.S. and Israel, was really promoted and supported. So much so to the point that if you remember, actually, I guess no one really remembers except for maybe one person in our office, but in 1979, the U.S. embassy in Tehran was held by the I believe it was like I don't know who.
Muslim students.
Yes, Muslim students,
yeah.
and they held the U.S. diplomatic personnel for I believe over 400 days.
Over 400 days, around 444 days.
Right.
Yes.
And this was sanctioned by the Ayatollah Khomeini, which is extremely sad. Then, 1989, Ayatollah Khomeini died, and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was a member of the Revolutionary Council and a trusted confidant of Khomeini, who was also actually president prior, took power and became the second supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Until last week.
Until last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, rather. from this podcast, from the release.
Yeah.
And again, he was not chosen by election, but by an elected body of clerics known as the Assembly of Experts. This man was known to be brutal and quote unquote one of the most evil people in history, as Trump said. He massacred tens of thousands of protesters even in January of this year. And he was this country was the number one supporter of terrorist organizations around the world, funding proxy groups, including Hamas. Human rights violations were rampant, and they were continually seeking to become a nuclear power, even after the U.S. Struck their nuclear power system. And so this was an evil regime. This was an evil leader that was killed 2 weeks ago by U.S. and Israeli forces. And that's just kind of a very brief history of stuff that's happened since 1979. But I think the question is, and I'm sure you have more comments on the history as well, but the question I think is, as U.S. citizens, as Christians who live in America, how is this okay, right? How can we kill the Ayatollah? How do we know that the future leader won't be worse? This is just simply another Hitler situation, and we've talked about this, right? People always, when they're asked, hey, if you had the opportunity to eliminate Hitler before he did all this stuff, would you have? And 10 times out of 10, people would say yeah, because we would want to prevent the Holocaust from happening. But they don't take into account the second in command. His second in command was worse. And so if that was the case, if he was the one that was in power, so how come people are celebrating this Ayatollah being killed? How do we know that the future leader won't be worse?
We don't know that. You don't know the future.
No, I don't know the future.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Good question.
But is it correct for Christians to celebrate someone dying? Is that okay? Is that a good
Christians
thing?
to celebrate? I think Christians are very happy that this leader was removed. If you have been paying attention, then you'll understand that over the last 2 years, but for the past many years, the last 2 years had the highest number of Christian persecutions,
Yep.
Christians being put in jail for an inordinate amount of time too, like 3-4 life sentences for being Christian and things like that. A record number of Christians.
Yeah.
And this was all by Khomeini. And, it was not going well.
Nope.
This is something that, Christians have been paying attention to for the last many, many years, for the multiple decades of wanting Christianity to really be able to be spread inside the Iranian state. And, it's a great thing. If you look at Open Doors, which is something that our church frequently have prayed from.
Right.
Open Doors has Iran, I think, and either from 8 to 10. Iran is like the top 10 worst countries for Christians.
Yeah.
So Iran is a very brutal nation. It's not, I don't know, whatever people have been thinking, it's not a nice place. I don't know, there's this weird propaganda going on the internet now, where now that you watch a documentary or something like that, Iran's not the bad guy, it's the Jews. And got to tell you, that's wrong. And if you feel like that's true, then during this Lent, maybe you should be fasting from the internet and documentaries. Documentaries may be the single worst form of information that one could actually subscribe and absorb. And so I this is just a tangent, but after this whole documentary kind of business came out, a ton of people became vegan. Do you remember that whole movement?
What was
Netflix?
What was it called? Game Changers. Brian was vegan for a while, actually.
There's a ton of, I mean, people would say, oh, this is what they do to the cows. This is what they do to the poor animals.
Yeah.
And then you see it visually on video, and people be like, I can't do this anymore. Do you know what they're doing to these poor animals? Documentaries are exactly the opposite of actual fact and truth telling, precisely because of the medium that they get to use. And I gotta tell you, I'll get into it, but I'll tell you, if you're getting your information and you're learning from documentaries, and that's your primary source, then you have to step back. If your primary source is, let's say, some commentator, then take a step back.
Yeah.
And so, if you're getting your news from one dude or two dudes or whatever it is, one lady, whatever it is, take a step back. If you saw this documentary, you think you're an expert on this, then take a step back. It's manipulative. The way documentaries have been are now manipulative. I think there was one documentary called like The Making of a Murderer or something like that. And what they did was they pretty much, if you watch the documentary, they exonerated the guy. But the people that were part of the case were like, no, this guy is 100% guilty. We have all this evidence that ensures that this guy is the guy. And yet the documentary was able to show things that are a little bit, shaky, but not show the actual strong, hard evidence. So people that are watching this really think that this murderer isn't a murderer. So people ended up thinking that way. And that's what documentaries did. And so you're actually being manipulated. And you get millions and millions of views on documentaries. They're easy to consume. It's like junk food. They're easy to consume, but they're all empty calories. In the end, it's going to end up killing you. And this is why people have stopped consuming books. They've stopped reading news articles and then double checking, triple checking the facts that these news articles are purporting. You don't even need to have a footnote. You could just take word of mouth, like whoever's like the narrator could be like, I assure you, I'm telling you the truth. This is what it is, And so this is the time. These are the times that we're in. You watch the documentary and you think you know it. This is sad times, though. Sad times.
Have you ever seen the documentary titled Icarus?
Yes.
Oh, good one. That's a good one.
Yes, I think that's a good one.
Have you ever seen the documentary called
Coney 2012.
What is that?
About Joseph Coney.
Who's Joseph Coney?
It's like warlord in Africa.
I thought that was the hot dog. No, that's Coney Island. Sorry.
Anyway, if you see a good documentary, then what I would urge you to do is then follow up by doing your research, especially if it's something world-changing, like worldview changing for you. Like you're going to now be a vegan or something like that. Or, it's the nasty Jews that did this or something to that effect. If that's what you're starting to think, man, you got to do some extra research. Like, oh, don't you know about this and these Jews dancing on the rooftop? And it's like, are you serious right now? Are you serious? That's your evidence? Like, can you explain it then? Yeah, I can explain it, but you won't like what I have for you. But here's the thing, like I get asked those questions so much more recently than, let's say, even 20 years ago, because more and more people are foregoing their, let's go to primary sources.
Yeah.
Let's read the footnotes. They're foregoing that knowledge that they could have and just listening to someone. And this is where you have the huge grift now. Left, right, whatever it is, there's a huge grift where people just listen to you talk without the footnotes to back it up. This is why I do like certain podcasts, like Just Thinking. They come up with the quotes and things like that. And, for us, we'll point you to our sources. And then ultimately, there is a source beyond ours, which we always point to, which is the Bible.
Right.
And I hope that's the case. So this is a slight tangent from Iran, but I think there's a whole spectrum of this kind of doing, from the secular world to even churches. Well, let's go to the secular world. What we'll do is, and it's called, I call it hucksterism, but it's like trust building, okay? So I'll tell you something, Sam, that will blow your mind. Like, did you know this happened? And you're going to be like, I didn't know.
Okay.
And then instead of saying, yeah, this happened and, this is going to be terrible, the trust building starts to, it gets slipped in. This is what, people like Candace Owens really does well. And so it's like, he's a liar, and here's the evidence that I have. But by pointing out that he's a liar, what you end up doing is you trust Candace. So you trust these people because they're the ones, only ones that were brave enough to tell you the truth when the whole world is hiding it from you. So they go on to this trust building. So she's the only one I could trust, or he's the only one I could trust because they're the only ones really speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And so they do this form of trust building, but what they're really doing is they're selling you a bill of goods. There really is no backing to it. And then if you dig like just 2 minutes of your own personal research, you know that there's nothing behind a lot of the claims that they'll say. But once you have this trust building, there's this huge following, so people really like it. It's whatever it is, slanderous gossip, some juicy tidbits, morsels of rumor mongering, things like that. People just eat it up, they gobble it up, right? And this is something that I find very troubling in today's age right now, what people are listening to. And so you have to watch what your ears hear, watch what your eyes see, and especially watch what you say. But what you do is you always have to back it up. And if some of the fruit that's coming out is not Christ-like, it's not godly, then you're not bearing good fruit from the things that you are now ingesting.
Yeah.
And so those are things that I hope people watch out. If you end up saying, look at these Jews, I hate them, then you have to be very careful of what you have been ingesting. And so people come up to me quite often now, like, well, did you see this piece of evidence? Did you see this piece of evidence? That they're building tunnels here in New York City, blah, blah, blah. Why are they building tunnels? It's because of this big, pedophilic ring that they're having. No evidence, by the way, no evidence. It's just sheer conjecture, and they're just spewing it out there. Let alone, like, if you do know exactly what was going on, then you're like, okay, that was stupid, and it's a small group of Jews that did this, and it's just one place, from one building to another, not a whole underground network of tunnels. But because people believe that, that's why they call, like, the Jews rats and things like that. This whole conspiracy, honestly, makes you dumber in the end and more easily manipulatable. It really does make you dumber. You lose all nuance in life, and it's just simple black and white. Jews evil, we Christians are good, and we must kill the evil Jews or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's why you see all these people now saying Muslims aren't that bad. It's the Jews that are bad. It's Iran's not bad. It was Israel that's bad.
Yeah.
And so you have this whole thing going on, and you're like, okay, can I? Even if you agree with that, and you think you have evidence, I'll say, can I inject some nuance? And that nuance is taken, like, offensively. Like, people get so angry. So I wanted to do this podcast about Iran because I wanted people to know, when it comes to world affairs, there is nuance. It's complex. It's not as simple as you think it is. It's not just this one thing. If anything, the world power is the one that moves things around. And that will be the U.S. There's a reason why Iran called the U.S. the big Satan.
Yep.
Because the U.S., they believe, was moving things around against them. Not Israel, okay? They hate Israel. They call it the small Satan. That's different. But they didn't think the small Satan was controlling the big Satan. That's not how it works. And so not even Iran believes that. And so there's this whole confusion in our midst. And I believe the fog that's out there is judgment. It's judgment on those that forego true truth-seeking to something easily more ingestible, which in the end, I'll say, is empty calories.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's the enemy of every man.
Yeah, and so you don't want to do that.
No.
It tastes good going in, but going out, it's an upside down volcano.
Does it go out? Or does it stay as adipose? Ugh. Wow. Sorry, that was a weird side tangent.
Yeah. So what kind of country was Iran? It's complex, and Iran, again, the way you pronounced it, I believe, is the
Iran.
The way they pronounce it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Iran, right? And then Iran, I believe, started to be pronounced Iran once I think Obama came into president. It became really mainstream then, but before that, everybody just called it Iran.
Yeah.
But Iran is the Aryan race, right? You don't know about that?
I think I've heard it, actually.
So this is very famous interaction between a German publisher called Rutten Loning, right? Rutten and Loning, and they wanted to publish his writings. And so they wrote him a letter saying, "Can you verify your Aryan descent?" So what they're really asking is, I just need to make sure that you're not a dirty, rotten Jew. Is what
Right.
they were asking.
Right.
And so J.R. Tolkien wrote them back a very famous response. He said, "I am not of Aryan extraction," and then he actually finishes this saying, "That is Indo-Iranian. As far as I'm aware, none of my ancestors spoke Hindustani, Persian, Gypsy, or any related dialects. But if I am to understand that you are inquiring whether I am of Jewish origin, I can only reply that I regret that I appear to have no ancestors of that gifted people." So that really, so he was through and through English. His ancestry is purely English.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his great great grandfather's arrival from Germany was in the 18th century. He's as British as you could be British.
Yeah. Like, hello.
Yeah, like that.
Hello, I'm
Right.
J.R.R.
No
Tolkien.
H's. It's just LO.
How are you?
But yeah, so when the Germans wanted to make sure that he was of what they thought of Aryan, descent, he politely corrected it, saying that you don't even know what Aryan means. Aryan means Persian. And so Iran is actually from Aryan. So Iran means the land of the Aryans. And so Persians are Aryans. Persians have this huge history. I believe Persians are the longest continuous civilization that we know of, one of them at least, with even maybe Egyptians up there.
The prince.
Okay.
Yeah. Prince
And
of Persia.
so, even in the Bible, when you're reading about the Medes and the Persians,
Yeah.
and then you look at Daniel 8 and you talk about the Medes and the Persians, and then one horn is bigger than the other. The Persian horn was bigger, right? You look at Cyrus the Great; he was of Persian extraction, and he had like a mother or something on his maternal side that was a Median. And so, the Medes and the Persians are a very, very ancient people. So if you are of Persian extract, then you have a very long lineage, very long lineage of civilization behind you. I believe the Persians were the first ones to have the greatest empire in the world, the largest empire in the world. In Daniel, the Medes and the Persians were the silver part of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? And just for comparison, the Babylonian Empire that Nebuchadnezzar had started, by the way, Persians and Medes existed before that too, but his empire, if you could call it that, the Babylonian Empire, was about 500 kilometers squared, something to that effect. If you look at the Mede-Persian Empire, it's like 5 million. It's 10 times bigger. It's 10 times bigger than Nebuchadnezzar's empire. So the Medes and the Persians, that empire really stretched throughout the land. That's why you have like Cyrus and Darius and all these people from Esther to Daniel on the opposite ends of the kingdom, and people are trying to put these two together, but they're so far apart, right? Distance-wise. It's a huge empire. And one of the things that they actually brought was, so who destroyed the first temple? Nebuchadnezzar, yeah? And so who was able to rebuild it?
What's his face? Ezra and Nehemiah.
What's his face? Right, under
Cyrus.
And guess who he was? He's a Mede-Persian, right? And so after Nebuchadnezzar, the next great empire was the Median Persian Empire. And they had this way of ruling. The bigger it was, they had this way of ruling with tolerance. And so whatever religious background you were from, they allowed you to practice it. That's why the Jews, the diaspora were able to go back and rebuild the temple under Cyrus's blessing, because he was the one that wanted for religious freedom to go across, his empire. And that's why you see, the Jews being able to do what they did. But even then, there were people that hated the Jews so much, like Haman and things like that, that we see recorded. The people of Iran, or the Aryan race, Persians, all from that kind of extraction, they have a history that goes back thousands of years. And, that's a very deep kind of cultural history that they can actually claim. When you even look at Acts chapter 2, like half of those races mentioned, maybe not half, maybe a third, they're Iranian. They're Iranian, like the Parthians and all those guys that were hearing it in their own language.
Yep.
That's Iran, modern day Iran. That's from that area. And so we know that Christianity spread, the diaspora. They were in places like Persia then, Iran now, and they came to Jerusalem on their pilgrimage, and they were able to hear the word of God and able to go back. And then the 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century, the church in Iran or Persia really grew. And it was until, I suppose, Islam came into the picture in the 6th century. Anything from there?
No, this is.
Yeah, you had the Parthians, the Medes, right? They're the Medians, right?
Yep.
The Elamites, they're all from that area. And so historically, or legend has it, that Thomas, Thaddeus, Bartholomew, they would be the early missionaries to these Parthian or the Persian territories. That makes sense to you? Yeah, and so we have a lot of history in that area. What you did was you were able to fast forward from all that history to now the Islamic Revolution. And then, because you mentioned, I won't double up on it, but there was a reign before the Shahs had control over, and it was through the Shahs like in the 1930s. I forget exactly when. I'll just pick a year, 1935. I don't know if that's the year, but they renamed it Iran. But it wasn't because no one thought it was Iran. Like, it was, Iran again means the land of the Aryans. And so it became known as Iran. But we still say like Persian stuff.
Right.
Like Persian rugs.
Yes.
Yeah, that's from, Persia, right? And so we still have things like, I think they're Persian cats.
There are.
Yeah. And so that's from, we don't say Iranian cats. They're Persian cats.
True.
Yeah, we don't say Iranian rugs, but they're the same thing, by the way. And so what had happened then was, this is where geopolitics comes into play. And I remember speaking out in a sermon once about Jimmy Carter, and I put him in a light that wasn't so positive. And someone from the congregation came up to me and said, by the way, I like Jimmy Carter. And in my head, I said, I'm sorry for you, but I didn't say it out loud. But Jimmy Carter's role was, how shall I say, pivotal. It was maybe the one singular thing that toppled the Shah. Again, you mentioned all the things that you mentioned. When he was ill, he was undergoing cancer treatment, and Jimmy Carter invited him here to New York for the cancer treatment. But before that, what you didn't mention was the Islamic underground revolution. The priests and the clergy, the priests that you mentioned, they were stirring up trouble. They were actually gaining popularity. The CIA and all those that are intelligence would tell Jimmy Carter, like, this is going on, but they rejected. They didn't listen to him. By the way, the CIA, the Mossad, right? The Israeli intelligence, they are truly at another level.
Yeah.
And this is another side note. People think these days people think they're like evil entities. They're just information gathering entities, and they're infiltration entities.
Are
So
you talking about how they found out that the Ayatollah was going to be there?
like they're you want to tell them?
Well, I know that they hacked traffic cams and they studied the pattern of life of the security officers and drivers, I believe, of the leaders in Iran. And based on information, all the numbers pointed to the fact that leaders and the Ayatollah would be meeting in this one building that day. And that's why Israel and the US were pushed to kind of strike on that day.
If you watch a comedy movie by Steve Carell, I think it's called Agent 99. Am I right? Is that what it's called?
Oh no, it
What
is called.
He
Is that
was
with
Agent
The
99.
Rock and Anne Hathaway?
Yeah.
It's like get
Get Smart.
smart, get
That's it.
smart.
Thank you. If you watch that movie, Get Smart, it's a very non-serious movie. It's a comedy flick, but they have the CIA correct. Jason Bourne is like what the CIA wants to be. I would say Get Smart is probably what they are, though. 99% of what they do. 99% of what, they do is they just gather intelligence. So they just gather information. They just listen in or hack cams and they just listen to conversations or watch movement. That's all they do. The U.S. is vastly superior than any other intelligence agency in the world in gathering that kind of information on everybody. The Mossad, the Israeli intelligence, they just solely focused on Iran, and they would infiltrate all across Iran there with their agents. That's why they were able to do like the pager bomb from Hamas and things like that. And so they're really good infiltrators. So when the U.S. intelligence and the Israeli intelligence started to work together against Iran had no shot. They not only knew where they were, what their movements were, but they had people inside, those networks to really take care of business. And so what happened then from Jimmy Carter's era was they were telling Jimmy Carter and, the leadership of the United States that, this is going on. And they dismissed them, unfortunately, much to Jimmy Carter's, it takes away from his legacy. It really does. And, obviously he lost the next election, so he was just a one-term president. And maybe you liked him for his rhetoric, his niceness, but I believe that's what got the U.S. in trouble. He was so into global humanitarian equality because he called himself a born-again Christian. He believed he was a born-again Christian. He considered himself to be an evangelical Christian. And mind you, most of his Nobel Peace, Prize-winning work was done from his post-tenure, like Habitat for Humanity and him going out to other countries to get, our political prisoners back. But what Jimmy Carter was really focused on was like he was like criticizing the Shah for his humanitarian, abuses or whatever it is. The way the Shah held power back then was whoever was kind of causing trouble, he actually he has his own intelligence agency. It was called the SAVAK, SAVAK. They would, capture these guys and they would torture them. And Jimmy Carter didn't like that. And so he's like, so the U.S. effectively, because the Shah was set up by the U.S., in a lot of ways, the Shah was only there because of the U.S. So when the U.S. started to pull out support from the Shah, you saw the Islamic revolution really happen. These guys would come in and they would start to, gain a lot of traction. And this really, really took a huge turn in 1979 that you mentioned when the Shah left and he was treated in like New York. And that was like in January of 1979. And in February 1st, Khomeini came in.
And people hated the fact that he was in the U.S. I think they kept on contacting the U.S. to bring him to Iran to be tried in Iran, right?
Yeah, because they didn't like what he was doing.
Yeah.
There was all this economic upheaval. There was all this stuff that wasn't going well, but the U.S. didn't back him for whatever reason. I think Carter was very idealistic, but then here's really where it counted for me. His human rights pressured the Shah, which I said was seen as abandonment. But then in October of 1979, the U.S. grants the Shah medical asylum here, and then Iran became furious because they wanted him to go back there. Now all these things were happening in Iran, which people just didn't like. So in November of 1979, students, like we talked about,
Yep.
stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, and they took 66 of the people working in the U.S. Embassy. And of the 66, they held 52. They let go of all the women. And this is also supported, like you said, by Khomeini. They let go of 14 people. And of those 14 people, I believe 6 were women. All the women, which were like 6. It's either 6 or 9. I think it's 6. And then the others, like the other 8, were African Americans.
There's actually a movie made about that called Argo.
I didn't see that.
It was pretty big. I think it won awards, I think, but Oscar winning. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what Carter did. Once they held 52 hostages, and they were obviously white men, which is interesting, right? Because they didn't want to hold any women or black people. And the Khomeini spun it like this. He spun it by saying, these guys couldn't have been spies for the U.S. because they are the oppressed class. African Americans and women, they're the oppressed class, so they can't be. Actually, there were 13 of them. The 14th one was sick, so they let him go. And then so they released them. And so this is what he said. So even back then, the Iranian government knew how to pull the strings of U.S. liberals. Like, these are the oppressed class. In the end, everybody knew it's white people that are worth more. That's what they thought, right? Everybody thought that way, except he knew how to pull the strings of the liberals, right? And so, he held those 52 hostages for over 400 days. I think it was 444 days under Carter. Carter was all about diplomacy. He refused to send in a military strike force against them for holding our citizens
For over a year.
Yeah, 444 days is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
He's well known for Operation Eagle Claw, and he sent in helicopters to Iran, but then there was a desert storm, and the helicopters actually crashed.
Not Operation.
What? Operation Eagle Claw.
Okay, but you weren't talking there was an actual desert storm, not Operation Desert Storm.
No. There was actual desert sandstorm.
Yeah.
And 8 U.S. soldiers and 1 Iranian died. And so it really made the U.S. look very weak. And that's exactly what the Iranian Revolution or the Islamic Republic wanted. And so they got exactly what they wanted. So for the next 47 years, Iran was all about making the U.S. look weak. And so for the next 47 years, anytime they are not wiped out, they could always claim it as a victory and a weakness of the United States. It's exactly the propaganda they continue to release. So whenever there was this nuclear dealing back and forth, blah, 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 and even if we had a shootout with Iran, if they just survived, all they need to do is survive, then Iran would say, we won. And the big Satan has failed. They failed to wipe us out. So their threshold for winning was just surviving. That is until last week, for us last week at least.
So I guess with this history, understanding the politics behind it, I'm trying to think through this from a Christian lens. As a Christian watching this unfold, how are we supposed to react to this? there's an aspect of, well, the U.S. had to do it because we're the global police force. There's human rights, human right, what's the word? Violations going on all the time under the Ayatollah, and the U.S. had to step in because he just kept on killing those who are protesting. And that's one aspect of it. The uranium enrichment program is another one. But I guess one of the questions that people have is okay, we understand that there may be a regime change, but for the benefit of who, right? But if we're doing this, are we doing this for the benefit of simply the U.S., or are we doing this for the benefit of the people of Iran? Because the people of Iran, definitely want a regime change, but it seems like the fear is the U.S. is going to put somebody in that they can work with, and it's just really all ultimately just for the U.S. So as a Christian, then like how, because we do care about the church in Iran, we do care about the people in Iran. So like how do we kind of think through this where it's like, yes, we're American, but we also pray for the brothers and sisters who are there. We want the best for them. So how do we kind of think through a situation like that?
Yeah, I think understanding the politics is just, the first step. I want to go back to Jimmy Carter because I could talk about him for a while. I think he was a massive and absolute failure. He thought that he could protect the human rights of everybody in the world. He thought it was his responsibility. That's massive hubris. So what is your job? Your job as president of the United States is to protect your own people, right? It's not to protect humanity in general. You're not God. And so you have an authority placed on you. You are given a certain jurisdiction. And so your job is to protect the lives of the United States. So which leads us to today. For 47 years, none of that has ever happened. We were not able to protect U.S. citizens and the United States just geopolitically from Iran's terror. Like you mentioned, we had, if we take Israel as a center point, we had Hamas from the lower left, right? The southwest, and then we had Hezbollah from the north, and then we also had the Houthis, who were pirates, right, in the sea. So they were basically surrounded by these terror proxies from Iran, like 360. Israel was. But not only did they terrorize Israel, they terrorized the United States. I think over the course of 47 years, you could look this up actually. Over the course of 47 years, I believe through the terror proxies and through the actual their military and the IRGC. By the way, Iranian military and the IRGC are two different things. They killed over 100,000 Americans. Yeah, and so while you look this up. One of the things that we have to recognize is, we need to make sure that our country can protect its own citizens from threats, internal and external. In fact, that's the oath the president takes, right? And so, we are seeing actual enemies who hate the U.S., who want its downfall, who kill. Oh, I'm sorry. So that number was wrong. It's over 1,000. Excuse me. It was over 1,000, not 100,000.
Yeah.
It's over 1,000 people. Something below 10,000 is what they said. But that we understand. But if you're talking about like with the terrorists and what they'll call Iran-backed militias, I do believe it's way more. Even in the Iraq war from 2003 to 2011, estimates attribute up to 1,100 U.S. deaths. And so we're seeing way more deaths than, people are seeing. And so you're seeing the number of U.S. deaths in the thousands, at least, in the very least.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is they will kill Americans any chance they get. And they are our enemy. They wanted to get a nuclear weapon so that they could be a threat to us, a bigger threat to us. And so watch what happened once we took out Khomeini, what did they do? What did Iran do? They literally just shot rockets at everybody.
Yep.
They shot
Their
rockets at
neighbors.
everybody. Every single neighboring country there was, they
Yep,
just
yep.
shot rockets at everybody. And in fact, we have someone who used to attend our church. He called me in like while I was having dinner. He called me. He's like, "Hey, do you have time to talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," because he's in Qatar.
Yep.
And he's working there right now. And he was telling me that Iran launched two ballistic missiles into Qatar. They were able to intercept one, but one got through. And the one that got through, it actually decimated the building that he worked in.
Yep.
So he was telling me, I just got out of work a few hours ago, and now I get a text that this building's not there anymore.
Yeah, that's
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where they are. It's these guys are not the good guys. They will rather have the whole world burn than the Ayatollahs losing any semblance of even a smidgen of their power. They're just evil dudes. And so the U.S. taking them out is a great thing, in my opinion. As far as Christianity is concerned, of course, if another country says we're going to take these guys out, these guys are just bad news, and it happens that these guys are the ones systematically getting rid of Christians, putting them in jail, killing them. I'm glad they're gone. I'm glad they're gone. They're terrible people. And so how can you not be happy about that? And so I hope people see that, how exactly it's going to turn out, I might not know. And the question of how do you know someone worse won't pop in is you never know. But does that mean we don't get rid of the evil dictator now? That's crazy to me, right? So the way we get rid of it is the way we get rid of it. Like you said, what if we had Himmel or Goebbels
Yeah.
take over, Hitler? What if we got rid of Hitler? And it's like, yeah, but then you get rid of Hitler the way you can. That's what we did. And guess what? Goebbels and Himmler didn't take over. That's the point. And so those are the things that you want to do. You want to get rid of Khomeini, and you want to get rid of everybody else who's like Khomeini. Right now, I think as we're recording, the next successor in line is like Khomeini's son or something like that.
So I think that's why I'm asking this question, because for people that are in Iran that want a regime change, that we're almost relying on the U.S. to do this for them to improve their quality of life. If the son of Khomeini takes over, it's not going to change anything. And so if that's the case, like, what are we doing? Like, we deposed of one leader to do what? To raise his son to be the leader? Like, shouldn't we be, I don't know, trying to help this nation if we did what we already did? Like,
I think it's called Operation Epic Fury.
it is
Am I
Epic
right?
Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Operation Epic Fury has a bunch of goals that they want to establish. And it's not just getting rid of Khomeini. That was one of them. So Operation Epic Fury is still ongoing right now. We're almost on week 1 now, right? For us recording now, because we recorded on a Friday and it started on Saturday. So we're almost on week 1, finished with week 1. But so if it was simply taking out Khomeini, I get it. That might not be right, but that's just wrong information. So if you're thinking we got rid of Khomeini, now we're going to get a son, he's way worse, it's going to be so much terrible. I just don't think that's the facts. You not only get rid of Khomeini, you get rid of anybody else that could do any kind of damage. You get rid of the IRGC. You make them, impotent. That's the point. So the IRGC and the Iranian army are different. I told you, right? The IRGC,
Yes,
the
yes.
Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, they served directly, or they took commands directly from the Ayatollah, and so they are the ones that would cause massive problems too, because it was this priestly class that had an actual full-on army at their disposal. And so if you get rid of them, if you get rid of, any kind of semblance of anybody rising up to do what the Ayatollah and their regime, the Islamic regime, did before, then yeah, obviously that's a failure. But that's not that's not what they're doing. I believe Operation Epic Fury is to get rid of all those underpinnings of that Islamic regime, and so that they could have, free and fair elections or whatever
Yeah,
the country
yeah.
really wants to do. But I do not think that the U.S. wants to go in there and instate their own regime.
Right.
But they will instate a regime change in the effect of, we will get rid of these terrorists, these guys that are purposefully trying to kill as many Americans as possible. We'll get rid of them, and we'll let the people do that. And they don't necessarily have to be our friends, but they will never. I believe one of the conditions was they will never have a nuclear weapon, which I believe is a good thing.
What about those people that would say, well, Iran isn't the only corrupt nation. The U.S. is also corrupt. So, why?
Yeah, I think those people are so misguided. I've heard things similar from like pundits like Tucker Carlson will say stuff like that. U.S. isn't that great. We've killed a bunch of people. We're murderers too. Things like that. Our hands are also dirty. Rhetoric like that is meant to confuse. By the way, whether I'll get to whether that's true or not, but rhetoric like that is meant to confuse and to kind of have you delineate between this side and that side, blah blah blah, and have you kind of oscillating. I don't know what the truth is, what could be the truth, and then it just gets you really upset and mad, right? Is the U.S. always going to do the right thing? Maybe not. That's not the point. That's not the point. This is an entirely corrupt and evil regime, and the fact that we can't point that out shows you that you have been manipulated and your worldview has been shaken and shifted to such a degree that you can't even be proud of your own country. I guarantee you, people like that are, definitely won't vote Republican. I'll guarantee you that one after a while. You don't want the U.S. to succeed. In fact, you want the U.S. to fail. And that, I believe, we have covered in the previous episode. If that's the case,
Yeah.
I do believe that is a moral failure on your part. It's a character flaw that you have now adjusted yourself to, where you want the downfall of the country that you live in. And I got to tell you, this country is a good country. Not a perfect country, but it's a good country. I think it's the best country in the world and in history. That's me, right? You can criticize this country, and the country will only be better for it. You can say, I need to do this, I need to do that, and then you could even run for office. Like, this country will let you do that. No other country will really let you do that. Try being, you're so close to being Japanese. You look Japanese. All you have to do is add a U to your last name, and you are Japanese. Will you ever be Japanese?
No.
That's a fact. You'll never be Japanese. You can live there for 30 years. They'll never consider you Japanese. In this place, they consider you to be an American. Korean American, I get it, but you're still an American. You can run for office here. You can have property here. You can vote in an election. You can say, my children are natives to America. This nation, this land belongs to them as well. You could say things like that. Only in America. That's a crazy kind of thing that we get to be a part of. It's a fantastic country. I'm sad so many young people hate it so much. And that's how, like I said, that's exactly how these empires fall too. It's from within. You know what's a side tangent that's kind of fun for me? It's the Greco-Persian War. With Marathon and Thermopylae, right?
Ooh, Marathon.
And that's where the movie 300 came out.
I thought that was Sparta.
Yeah, it's part of Thermopylae. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. All right.
No, I knew that.
Sure.
Thermopylae.
Yeah, and then, all the Persians are so upset at the way Xerxes was
'cause-
portrayed.
yeah.
He was portrayed like a
They
very
made him feminine.
Yeah.
Zesty.
Yeah, he was a little zesty. That's what you say?
Yeah, that's the
You've
one
been
word
silent
that
for an
comes out.
hour. Oh, that's zesty. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying?
here's the emperor of a incredible empire.
Yeah.
And then they made him half naked
Yeah.
with chains going around his body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. But connecting to that, the U.S. is an empire. Now, whether we call it an empire or not, people don't mess with us, and to be a part of that is something that you should be proud of. Should you push the U.S. more towards something that is morally good? Absolutely, absolutely. But it's like Koreans not being proud of Korean heritage. There are no Koreans like that. What's going on with these Americans? Who think like America is not that good of a place? We have blood on our hands too. It's like, that's a crazy thing to say. That's crazy, because what is your objective? Your objective, again, is that hucksterism. And I'll finish that thought that I started. I call it that because these guys are trying to say that, look, I showed you this truth because I'm the bold one. I'm going to show you this truth. Now you could trust me. Trust me. And it goes from the large scale to the small scale. Like a church pastor could do that. I'm not going to name people, but a church pastor could be like, I'm the real deal. I'm real with you. I'm giving you the truth, right? I'm the real deal. But what that happens, that loyalty goes to the pastor, not to the Bible, not to the Word of God, not to the church, not to Jesus Christ. I mean, verbally, yes, but their sincere loyalty will be to the pastor. And that's a form of that hucksterism come down to the local level. And I think that's dangerous. I don't like churches like that, where you have such a strong personal following that no one can criticize. No one can be like, how about you doing this, pastor? And be like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you even open your dirty little mouth, and that kind of thing. And so I don't like that. And I have problems with that. And I'll call them hucksters because that's the kind of culture that they formulated. And I don't like that. I'd rather have people come to church, and whether it's the pastor or the elder or a deacon or even a lay member, you're pushing people to the Word of God. You're pushing people to Christ. You're pushing each other to Christ, not pushing everybody to this one person, right? So we're not Roman Catholic. We don't push all the people to the Pope who then takes us to Christ. We could push people directly to Christ. And I believe that's what we ought to do. So these hucksters, what they'll do is they'll say, this is the truth that no one's able to tell you except me. So follow me and listen to what I have to say, because I'm the one that really cares about you. No one really wants to tell you the truth, but I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And what that does, it buys you a ton of views, because people, for whatever reason, want to believe that they've been lied to, and here's this Messiah come to show them the truth. And that's exactly what they think Jesus did. And so when you go into that and you really fall into that stuff, and then you're not even Christian, because Jesus did the same thing, except Jesus didn't. If you look at the things that Jesus did, he said, this is the truth. And guess what he did? He pointed people to the Father. This is a crazy thing, right? You point people to the Father. I am the truth, the way, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through me. So he will point people to the Father, the ultimate truth. He's saying, I'm going to point you to the truth, but I'm the truth, but I'm going to point you to God. And Jesus never would raise himself up. He always elevated the Father. The Father elevates the Son. And that's what we see in the Trinity. That's what we see from God, but not from these hucksters. They always elevate the self.
Yep.
Everything is about them. And so those are things that you have to watch out for. Watch out for people who try to tell you that I'm going to tell you the truth that no one's going to tell you, so you could trust me in everything. And then they'll sell you the cheap bill of goods, and then you will be a fool for it. You'll see the world in such a simplistic, reductive lens that your IQ will drop. You will think like, oh, this group of people, they're the bane of the world. It's because of them the world is flailing. They're the evils of society. Or, it's just this simple thing. It's this simple thing. I assure you it's not. Things can be complex in the world. It shouldn't surprise you. But even in its complexities and its simplicities, we know who is sovereign over all. That's the one that we point to. That's the one that's what you ought to do.
I think this is a helpful way of looking at this, because I think oftentimes we just, see the little clips on YouTube Shorts or Instagram or whatever social media platform we're on. That's what we see. We just see the little shorts. We never get a context. We never get a history. We never really get a long form answer for these types of things. And so I think this is helpful. One thing that I do want to end with, though, is, at least this topic, is there are brothers and sisters in Iran. I believe the underground church in Iran is the fastest growing church in the world.
Yes.
How do we pray for our brothers and sisters in Iran? How do we, we know that the church grows in times of persecution and conflict. Not that we pray for those things, but we know that that's what we've seen throughout history, that the church grows in these times. How do we pray? How do we continue to support them?
Yeah, we really want the gospel to be spread. There be no hindrances to it being spread. We want those things, those obstacles to be removed. And man, one of my favorite verses is from 1 Timothy chapter 2, right? We want to live quiet lives. We want to just worship God. And we want our other brothers and sisters to be able to do that, especially in places like Iran. And so we could pray for that kind of regime change where our brothers and sisters could worship God. And that's what we really want. I said this on 2 Sundays ago, but from when you're listening, but I remember even like 20 years ago, Iran was a huge topic of prayer for us. And we really wanted the gospel to go into Iran. You couldn't even bring Bibles there. You couldn't bring your own Bible. They would catch you if you brought your own Bible. So why are you bringing the Bible? That's always my personal one. I just read it. They're like, I don't know. They could have confiscated it. They could even put you in jail for it if they thought that for any reason. Let's say it's translated to Farsi.
Right.
And they could be like, oh, this guy doesn't read Farsi.
You don't read Farsi.
And they'll sentence you to death, or they'll imprison you for life. And so that's what they would do to these missionaries. It's a harsh place for Christians. And we are at the cusp of possibly that kind of horrible and evil regime being overturned and changing into possibly something better, so that we can continue to work and spread the gospel there. When the Chinese government, again, a terrible, terrible government, I hate the Chinese government. They still imprison pastors. They still these Chinese pastors are committing suicide. Now I don't even know if they really committed suicide. And so the underground church, they're trying to, with now the AI surveillance, they're cracking down on the churches there, the underground church, because the underground church is not sanctioned by the government, so they're illegal churches. But the sanctioned churches in China, whoever's preaching, that sermon manuscript has to be approved by the government first. So we still have places like that. And so these are terrible places. You can't even preach the word of God without editing it being censored. Praise the Lord for a place like the United States. And I am so upset at people that would say otherwise, like the U.S. is the exact same as Iran. We have blood on our hands. That's a crazy statement.
Yeah.
That's a crazy statement. It's full of garbage. And it's meant to confuse. It's meant to shake you and to make you unstable. But don't be shaken by stuff like that. Just know that that's not true. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that the people, especially our brothers and sisters in the world, are able to worship freely and able to worship well. People, even with the freedom of worship, sometimes don't even have the resources. And so we go there and try to help them build churches, try to get the community set up, try to help them evangelize. So we even try to help with that. And even when you and I went to Japan, this is a first world nation. The Christians there were struggling big time, right? The Christians there are struggling big time because they get zero support. They're lonely. You got like 10 people in a church or something like that. You're not that encouraged, right? So just by us going there, that was a huge, moral support that they received. I wish, in hindsight, we went more often, and that we could have been a more steady encouragement to our brothers and sisters over there.
Yeah.
But, I don't think we should stop praying. And since we're on the topic of Iran, let's continue to pray that, the gospel be spread, untethered, uncensored, and that Christians will be able to worship freely and openly in this nation. And I think you could pray that a sensible regime get placed in power. whether it's the Shah or the Shah son now, but whether it's the past regime that they had or an entirely different one, just not this one, right? Because we know this one's bad.
Yeah.
And so you could actually pray for that. That's not a bad thing to pray for. And so I hope that you will, and I hope that Christianity will continue to increase there in Iran, one of the oldest, again, civilizations of the world.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Pastor Eugene. We'll continue in our prayer for our brothers and sisters in Iran and the conflict that is going on there right now. Let's move on to, well, actually, this is current events, but there is another current event. So I guess current events. Talarico. So current events. The question is, how do we respond? What is the Christian response in the face of fake, quote unquote, Christian leaders? And I'm, of course, talking about the victor of the Democratic primary in Texas, James Talarico. He won over Jasmine Crockett this past week. And he ran under the pretense that he's a Christian. He also attended Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, apparently, which is a Presbyterian seminary. And in his campaign, they even provided "Love Thy Neighbor" signs to people in the crowd. And so he ran as a Christian. Now, there are viral clips that I'm sure, I almost feel like people know him more for his viral clips than anything else. But there are viral clips in which he preaches to a church from the Gospel of Thomas. And I will read the text that he talked about. This is the Gospel of Thomas, saying 114. I don't know how that is. But it reads, Simon Peter said to them, Mary should leave us, for females are not worthy of life. Jesus said, see, I am going to attract her to make her male, so that she too might become a living spirit that resembles you males. For every female that makes itself male will enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, cool. So that's what Thomas apparently, it wasn't Thomas, but that's what the Gospel of Thomas says. And he preached on that apparently at a church, apparently. I guess it was supposed to be a church. And so women need to become men to be saved, is what he said. He is also quoted as saying that God is non-binary. And I quote, God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary. And then he said later on, trans children are God's children made in God's own image. Okay, yes, children are God's children made in God's own image. That doesn't mean that God is non-binary. So, okay, so here is this guy that runs as a Christian in the Democratic Party, and he's clearly not a Christian. So what is our response to that? What are we supposed to think about this? Is this a win? Is this not a win? Like, what are we supposed to think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he's going to be the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Texas.
Yep.
He is a Presbyterian seminarian, but his father was a Baptist preacher, I believe. And so he's someone that knows the language, knows how to talk the talk, I suppose, right? And that's what people are seeing online. But yeah, I mean, of all the things that he said, we know that he's a heretic. So there's that too. The most dangerous people probably are the people that talk the talk. They're not the ones that are saying, I'm an atheist, I hate you, I'm going to kill you, things like that. Maybe the most dangerous are the ones in your midst, the wolves in sheep's clothing. Not just the wolves that are out there. They are dangerous, but it's the one in sheep's clothing, meaning they're inside, they're among you. And they know how to talk the talk. But what they're saying is demonic. What they're saying is satanic. And so some of the things that are being said are things that, because they're using our language, so to speak, our vernacular, it seems as though they are speaking the same thing. But they're not. There's nowhere close to that. And so he's not as far as I know, an ordained minister, but he is part of a PCUSA church, I believe. And so those are things that we get to see. If he was a minister in like some other denomination, I would imagine he would get disciplined or even defrocked. But you know, Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, I don't know. But he wanted to put ministry and politics side by side, and here he is actually being successful. And people like Stephen Colbert would platform him on his show, and that's where the little little controversy started, because if Stephen Colbert was going to platform Tallarico, then I believe the FCC would have said that you need to platform Jasmine Crockett, and I guess either he didn't want to, because they just took down the interview and they said something like Trump is barring us from putting this interview up, which is a lie. It's just a lie.
How can Trump bar you from putting an interview
He's
up?
using the FCC to censor.
Right.
Tallarico is
I've
the
heard of
guy.
that,
So
yeah.
they try to spin it for, basically propaganda for Tallarico. And, he's this guy with the face that people want to say, oh, look at him. He looks like a conservative, but he's,
A conservative face? What does that look
I
like?
don't know. He's like well groomed, and he looks like he would dress in a shirt and a jacket or Oxford shirts. I don't know what it is. That's the people. So the Democratic Party is, I believe, trying to get Christians who are like, oh, I hate Trump. What do I do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, look at this. This guy's a Christian too. You can vote for us. Is he a Christian? No, obviously not. Does he believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and life? Obviously not. Does he believe that Jesus is the only way? Does he believe that the Bible is true and it's inerrant, infallible? Obviously not. And so here he is quoting the Gospel of Thomas, a well-known Gnostic heresy about how we're actually not physical, but we're spiritual, only spiritual, and like men are the true. It's all the Gnostic heresy is going way back to like this crazy Greek thought that men are superior, women are inferior because they're underdeveloped, that kind of thing. And so in Christ, or whatever you want to call it, in God, you become all male. That's who can enter heaven.
I see.
And that's what you've been hearing from like the Gospel of Thomas stuff. But Gospel of Thomas, first of all, wasn't written by Thomas.
No.
It was written like 100 years later after Thomas. And they just put the name Thomas to fool Christians.
Thomas
But
was
the
busy
church,
in India.
Yeah, the church was not fooled. It was not part of the canon.
Yep.
They knew it.
And
like
he
the
says-
Gospel of Mary is not canon.
And in that video clip talking about the Gospel of Thomas, he says, oh, this was taken out of the Bible. It was never in the Bible in the first place. So
Yeah.
it wasn't taken out because it's never in it.
Well, people who don't know might believe him. Yeah.
Gospel of Thomas was too busy. But yeah, this is helpful because, like you said, people that don't know are just going to go along with it. This
I mean, that's why it's important to know the Bible.
Right.
You got to know why we believe what we believe. Perhaps even go as far as why the Reformers rejected deuterocanonical books.
Yeah.
They're actually not canonical.
I'm just going to say this dude's weird. He gives me weird vibes.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate that, there are people like that vying
Yeah.
for power,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't be surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get heretics. We're going to get
Yep.
blasphemers. We're going to get pagans all up in this place.
Oh, yeah.
And what we got to do is we have to continue to raise strong Christians within our families and our churches. And we have to evangelize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Pastor Eugene. Thank you for that. That was very helpful. And we thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church Podcast. Join us next week. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith. Peace.